And there we are. Hello, everyone.
Konbanwa.
It is Saturday night. That means it's time for the Weekly Dig. For anyone new to the stream, this is a live show where we dig into anime, old and new. I'm Brent. These are my experimental co-hosts, John.
Konnichiwa, everyone.
And Steve.
Hola, ¿qué tal?
Yeah. And we are starting our dig tonight by analyzing the final episode of Serial Experiments Laine. The experience.
It has been.
The myth, the legend that is this show. So we've looked at the show up to this point, and we just want to kind of focus on the final episode here because it starts not like any other episode, does it? It jumps right into Laine looking at the camera. And talking to us and giving this very meta thing about, I am saying this, but who am I? Who is me? What does this even mean anymore?
Yeah.
So this was actually the first and only episode that I watched on my widescreen TV.
Oh, wow.
Because
cool.
I actually bothered to put it fun animation onto my television and actually, hooked it up in the whole 9 yards.
Cool.
So when that goes on and she's talking to me on the screen, I'm like sitting on my couch and I'm kind of like going, talking to me? I mean, oh crap! This was a lot not creepy when not as creepy when I was looking at my laptop. I knew it was my laptop, but
not as creepy.
But I was like, I was like half expecting the video drone hand come out.
Exactly. Yeah.
Screen,
Oh,
they're here. Oh boy.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting at this point in the show for it to kind of get to that meta level where it is kind of talking directly to the audience, quite literally, about what the heck is going on in this show. Because, heck, who knows? And then we get our opening credit sequence. And then, I think for the first time in the show, we get a recap.
Well, no, we had a recap before in the music video, the AMV that we had for episode 11 or whatever it was.
You're right. What I mean is the traditional sort of thing where here's the last 30 seconds of the previous episode kind of thing. Yeah, but you're absolutely right. We did have a recap.
Yeah.
But sort of pulling that in. And then...
Yeah, because watching Alice freak out twice is
just wonderful.
Excellent. The second
Fantastic.
time.
Thank you.
I was just like, because it was almost like as if there's like the last was and it's cut off, and now you're going, okay, here we back.
Let's just pick up where that left off.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Thank you, show. And we get that, but surprisingly, the scene continues. Because we actually get and we see Alice kind of lose her mind.
Yeah.
Kind of?
Mm-hmm.
That puppy just went up and said, nope.
Yep. Yeah. She just
has
completely
some issues processing the things she's just been
exactly.
And when Laine just grabs her, it's just like, okay, we're done now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And goes that catatonic.
Yeah. Well, and then she kind of slaps at Laine, if you will, which I thought was kind of interesting, and gives her the little mark on
her face.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, okay, wow.
Mm-hmm. Which I think might be a Kenshin reference. Rurouni Kenshin reference. Because this is what happens to Kenshin. I don't know if we had the backstory on like the cross-shaped scar and all that, what that meant at this point in like 1997, whenever they were working on this. But given the fact that they're one of the points of Kenshin is the using a tool or using a skill because you think it's the right thing to do, but finding out it has terrible after effects and terrible resolutions of that would connect. But I don't know. It could also just be a moment. But then lashing out.
Yeah, it's kind of like cliche to say it, but the minute that Alice does that, it's in my mind it rang through as the old stupid saying of like, you always hurt the one you love.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
Laine is trying to protect Alice. She's doing a lot of this stuff for her Alice fix, and Alice is like, oh god, now. It's like Laine's not trying to hurt Alice, but just things are like kind of getting nuts, and Alice then is also not trying to hurt Laine, and it does. And it's like, okay, well, they actually now are both hurting each other, like physically or psychologically, but it's like, oh boy, wow, this is a lot going on there.
Yeah. Not to mention the fact that Laine doesn't even really react.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, she clearly feels it. I mean, she probably feels it, but it's just like this. That is not what she's worried about right now.
Right.
Yeah. There's a lot of other stuff on the fire. Yeah.
Like, reality. Like,
Yes, exactly. And having just sort of killed God.
Yeah.
But yeah, we Alice. Or I'm sorry, Laine then grabs Alice in this very sort of tender moment, and we pan up to Alice just beep.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, what then triggers, and we get this lovely shot of the room. All reset.
Yep.
Yeah.
And obviously, we've seen this shot before as just reset when Laine tried to fix the issue with Alice.
Yeah.
And then realizes she kind of made a mess of that one. And so now let's just go whole hog.
I mean, you could argue it. Now, mind you, I don't think there's any cross seeding in this, but there was a Star Trek episode, Next Generation, where they encountered a species that did not want to be known.
Okay, interesting.
And they're traveling through that species space, and they come up with a compromise, which is like, no, just wipe our memories, and then set us on the other side, and we'll just say, oh, it's a wormhole. And they left like clues.
Interesting.
And it unraveled because people were like, well, that's a little strange. And it's like, that made me think of this, where it's like, Laine tried.
Yeah.
And leaving Alice in the loop with her didn't bring the result that Laine was gunning for.
Yeah.
So that it's like, no, reset is like a actual hard reset.
Right. Yeah.
Laine has to leave that reality.
Yes.
And has to leave Alice behind.
Exactly. Yep.
Because that's the only way to achieve the end that she wants, and the end that will give Alice a chance.
And worse,
it's like, oh boy.
Yeah, and even worse, like, Laine can't leave like any piece of her behind, because then some trajectory is going to go there eventually.
Right.
Yeah.
Which we do see a slight little like, oh, do I know you? Were you
Right.
one
Oh
of
yeah.
my
Well,
student teaching? So it's like Laine's. It's an imperfect reset, but it's enough.
Yeah.
Because the familiarity that exists in Alice, it's like, okay, you could say that's the touching, deep emotional connection that she has with Laine. But at the same time, it's like Laine's done a fairly effective job because she's scrubbed off so much of the conscious mind that it's just a familiarity that's back there. It's not like, oh, you're a Laine, and then he rushes back like, oh, cataclysmic results.
And they're very careful to show that. But they also, at this point, do the present day, present time thing. And this is where I figured it out. The reason... Oh, actually, this is not it. Where was it? Was it right before or after this? I'm annoyed because I thought this is where we got present day, present time.
It definitely showed up later than
usual.
Was it right? Okay. Well, we'll get there. But no, we cut back, and this is something that's a little hard to tell unless you you remember first episode very well. This is episode 1. These are the shots of episode 1 of the power lines and everything going on.
The shadows,
etc.
And everything. And they linger very much on the front door.
Yep.
And there's no Laine coming. Excuse me, no Laine coming out.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, which for a second, there's no audio.
Well, there's a buzz, but yeah.
Yeah, but it's like it goes from things happening and audio to like a buzz and nothing, and I was just like, I started checking to see. I'm like, did the audio cut out? It got very quiet suddenly. I'm like, what's going on with this?
Wouldn't put it past the show.
Yeah, well, turned out it wasn't me for once. Hey, good luck on that.
And then we cut to the Iwakura house, and everyone eating their dinner, or eating a meal. I guess it's dinner because Mika's there and she gets up.
But you never see Mika.
Yeah, you hear her voice.
Yeah, you hear her voice.
Sure.
And, yeah, she just says, "I'm leaving," basically.
Right,
And
it's
something
just like,
about a diet.
Yeah.
and it's just like it's a really interesting cut for that because it's like again we've got 3 place settings.
Yep.
We don't, like Laine in her classroom where there's the desk is gone, but Laine is still there. Like Alice's room where you've got 3 cushions, but there's still a spot for Laine. It's like you've got 3 people at a table.
Yeah.
You don't see Mika at all, and there's a spot for Laine.
Yep.
It's just like,
And it's a wonderfully
interesting.
ambiguous thing because we all have plenty of people have parents and 2 kids, but a 6-person dinner table, and they have 6 chairs around there, and they just don't use the other 2 chairs. So it's this wonderful ambiguity of you could imagine that is just a chair that's just sitting there all the time, but we're so used to seeing it used that it has that memory of Laine being there, and as we see, Yasuo looks over and goes,
Huh. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a moment.
definitely.
Which gives you even a better feel for how far Laine has gone down the rabbit hole to dig out her own memory.
Yeah.
Is that Yasuo has, presumably Yasuo never has the idea to create the physicality that is Laine.
Yeah.
So it's like she's dug down deep enough, and we certainly see that when we see Eri later on.
Oh, yeah.
It's like he is kind of like a mad scientist kind of moment.
We'll get to Eri. I love Eri. Yes.
And it's like she dug down so deep as to take out the underpinnings of her very existence.
Well, and I think that's what we're doing. I just realized that this isn't dinner; it's breakfast because Laine is going through her day.
Right.
She's going through breakfast, then she's commuting to school, and she's double checking that there's no memory. Nobody is connected. Nobody misses her, so to speak.
She's doing continuity checking.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
That's exactly.
Oh
what she's doing.
crap! Really?
and she goes to school, and what's even better is that again, this is episode 1. All of the girls going to school, and we even get a repeat of that beginning shot of the shadow coming in, and the girl behind it. And in episode 1, it was Laine, but Laine's shadow had the red stuff in it.
Yes, it did.
And now it's just Alice with a normal shadow.
Yeah.
And Alice just is here, coming to school, but here's
although again we get that moment where she's like, I should email her. Who's her?
Yeah, her.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And yet it resolves itself before Laine has to step in to do something about it.
And
you know what I mean?
more notably, and it's Ichisa, which is like, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for letting us know. She's still there. She's still awfully quiet, but she's alive.
Yeah. But that and twice now. The first time I saw that, I was like, Jesus! And it did it again, where I'm like, oh, that's boy, Chisa, yeah.
Yeah, if Chisa's alive, then we know we've gone way back.
Yeah. Just like...
It's a bit like Ryoko in Haruhi Suzumiya when in season 2. He's like, I know! Anyway.
Like, no matter how many times you see it, you're kind of like,
no. But
okay.
Interestingly, Alice's reaction is not, that's weird. It's, oh, that's right. He just goes like, oh, it makes sense now. Moving on. So there's a little bit, so I have a sense that Alice still has some memory and some sense of what was going on. And she realizes what Laine has done. And it's like, okay, makes sense, time to go on with my life. Basically, that's what's hinted at here, at least.
So you're thinking it's that high up in her it's conscious.
I think it has raised to the level of consciousness in this moment.
Okay.
And then,
but not like, why would Laine do this? What happened? Why is Laine
I
thinking of this idea?
Yeah, I was gonna say I didn't think that she had this complex notion that this is what Laine did, but more along the lines of, I'm used to doing this with this person, but I don't know who that person is, because she goes through that whole little spiel about, can you remember someone that you've never really, can you remember someone that you've already forgotten?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So she's dealing with an after image, I think, and she's just like, oh yeah, this is silly of me. I can't remember this.
But I mean, I agree, except there is a line where she says, "Oh, that makes sense," or something along those lines, which to me suggests that she hasn't completely forgotten it. That there's some sort of reordering happening in her mind of going, "Oh yeah, there was a Laine girl, but it's not important now," or whatever.
Right. So what you're saying is it's not to the level of like, this makes sense. Laine has done a thing so that the horrible crap I've been through doesn't happen.
Well, I think that is an interpretation one could have based on that line. But I think given the context of everything else, I think that's unlikely. So,
I was gonna say, because I could certainly think the whole airy manifestation thing, I would really want to not remember. I'd be good not remembering that.
It could also be one of those sort of dream things, right, where you kind of half remember that this person did a thing, and you're like, oh yeah, that's not like that's been taken care of or whatever. I don't know.
Right. That's not real. That's just something that's something.
Like could be.
What an odd memory or an odd thing. I'll just let that go.
Totally. And this is the shot which they kind of reuse here, which I was talking about before, where it's this wonderful shot of the wires literally over top of like the school, which they used earlier, and it was much more Laine-ified with all the colors and so forth. But now it's all pretty and lovely.
Well, that's not the shot where you get the stark actual black and white, and then the ghost image behind.
No. Okay, no, I don't think so. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, that's fine.
Because that occurs later.
Yes. And then we get Taro and Mew Mew, and the other kid, who I always forget his name.
Yeah, I don't remember his name either. Did we ever hear it in like the whole?
Yeah, I think at some point. They say his name.
Because Taro talks about Mew Mew and like being jealous of Laine and other stuff, and it's like those seem to be the most interactive two of them.
Yeah.
And then the other kid's like, "Hey, how you doing, third wheel? What's up?"
Pretty much, yeah. And what's notable here is they're not in Siberia.
Right.
We've only ever seen them in Siberia, and now they're just out walking around, enjoying life. Although Taro does have his little gun Navi, which I think is just, if these things existed for kids, there would totally be a gun Navi that every boy would own.
Yeah. You do know there is like a Glock cell phone holder, right?
Oh no, I didn't know that.
It looks like the handle of a Glock 17.
Wow.
And you put a cell phone in it. It's like, it is one of the most guaranteed to get you killed by
police
officer in the world.
Yeah. Excuse me, let me take this phone.
Yeah, I just need to make a phone call. He's got a gun. Like, no, it's a phone.
Yeah.
I found it very interesting that his Navi, Taro's Navi, is a C96 Mauser.
Oh,
that's the handle on that. Okay. So it's a World War I semi-automatic 9mm pistol.
Okay.
German 9mm pistol. So like that's a little weird. They also contract sold it to the Chinese nationalists with Chiang Kai-shek.
Okay.
So it's like, okay, so the Japanese would have had experience with it as a result of the Sino-Japanese War. So it's interesting.
Yeah. How do you think that connects?
I'm not entirely sure.
Okay, fair. Yeah.
But it's late. So there has to be a particular type of reason.
I think it's just that is the throwback to the dude that shot himself.
But he had something that was akin to a Glock or a Beretta. He had a modern slide action. Taro's gun Navi is very specifically a C96. So an 1896 model Mauser. It's like, there's got to be a reason. And for the love of me, I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Again, I think because of the contract with Chiang Kai-shek and the nationalists, I think that is a model that would have been somewhere in the consciousness, like bring home trophies and other stuff that would have come back that, some elder Japanese would have seen. But that is not an audience that you're going to have watching Laine.
Yeah. You could argue that they're basically referencing older technology. that we've kind of gone back to
That could be.
Protocol 6, basically, and this is kind of what that is. Although he had this before, so I don't know if this is the same model. Who knows?
Yeah, I only now when he pulls it out and he's standing in daylight, picks it up in front of the face. It's like, oh, that's what that is.
Mm-hmm.
Like before, it kind of just sort of glossed across the frontal lobe there. I was like, it's a gun knobby.
Yeah.
But
it should also be noted, owning firearms is illegal in Japan.
Yeah.
oh yeah,
So there's that whole other layer going on. What an odd society it would be to allow children to own a nabi that looks like a gun.
right. Well, quite honestly, I think it's Shoei. I think it's Shoei makes model guns, which
Sure.
like we've seen
Yep.
in Megazone 2-3 Part 2, when they're shooting the cops in the face and there's the little white dots are hitting the cop in the face when they're in the parking lot.
Okay.
Those are like airsoft pistols.
Okay. Yeah. Sure.
And they are fabulously expensive and incredibly well built. And you can't distinguish them essentially from an actual gun.
True.
But because Japan has such stringent gun laws, those kind of like toys are like kind of a little more accepted because people know it's not a gun. You're like, so it's
that's
kind
a
of
great point.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So
that's
it's
the
one of those,
interesting point.
It's
like,
a toy.
okay,
Yeah. It's
right.
a really well made toy.
The flip side of that is like, again, here you pull that out of your pocket and there's a
Right.
police officer, you're gonna get yourself shot. In Japan, it's probably pretty likely at the time
Yeah.
they defaulted to like, why is that stupid kid got that gun navi?
That's a good point.
This is the dumbest choice.
And note here, in reference to what we saw before, he pulls out his navi, and Laine does show up briefly.
Yeah.
And Taro has no recognition. Just completely gone.
Yeah.
Which is good. Like, okay, that's done and dusted. And then, of
He is
course...
appropriately jealous.
Exactly.
Well,
and-
Mew Mew can rest easy now that Taro is not
Right.
totally obsessed with Laine. So that's good.
Let's not get into the preteen girls jealousy of other girls.
Yeah. They steered away from that, so good on them for the most part.
And then we see they're interrupted by two other faces, which we're very glad to see alive. And it should be pointed out, like you're watching Laine, and it's how incredibly depressing the show is, and they're very deliberately telling you, no, it's all good. Like, all of these characters are alive explicitly. The little girl in Phantoma, the guy who shot himself, and this is the connection I made this time around. If she's his little sister, and he was hopped up on the kid system in Siberia, maybe that's why she was running around Phantoma, because the kid system leaked onto her.
Ooh.
And so maybe he came home and that kind of radiated onto her, so to speak. And so now she's able to run around the Wired and do all sorts of crazy stuff. I don't know, but...
Well, sort of like the Mika problem.
Right,
And
exactly.
everybody in their household, where it's like Laine is leaking this
Yeah,
stuff that alters reality for everyone.
Exactly. And then we get a moment that I literally grin at every time I see, because we then see Dr. Airy walking along.
It's just clenching.
Yeah.
Like, God, don't drink malt
Disgruntled
liquor in the
employee.
morning. Don't drink malt liquor in the morning.
And I love that. And again, I don't know how
I swear
much.
one of these days I'm going to make a mobile game that'll make me billions, and then I'll screw all y'all. I'm like, what?
I love the fact, again, I don't know how much Laine is changing reality, or if this is just kind of the way things would have been otherwise, but I love the implication that Laine basically puts Airy in hell. He's just this miserable salaryman who just hates his job, and he's just, I'm gonna quit today, I'm definitely gonna quit. He's just,
Which I mean,
See
for
Lenny
her,
and Squiggy.
yeah, I'm glad to see Lenny and Squiggy
Yeah.
alive. It's not kind of going from being like assassin kind of mercenary guy to being like.
But it's
the
infrastructure.
schmoes.
It's still
Yeah.
infrastructure. They basically knew
That's
what they were before.
Very true, but it's just like, wow, glad they're alive.
Uh-huh.
Let's celebrate their living. Hooray. But Eri, it's like interesting because did we ever get to see Tachibana Labs president, their head guy?
No, we don't. Good point.
Because I kind of wondered whether Laine went back. And again, how deep does the rabbit hole go?
Right.
Did she go back and just basically pull the roots out of Tachibana Labs out entirely?
Yeah.
So that it's
Well,
not
probably
that
not.
Eri is in like hell particularly, but there was no Tachibana Labs to sort of foster him.
Interesting.
So she's removed that part of the tree. So Eri is just this guy who's like got great ideas, got good stuff going on, but he doesn't have that environment that Tachibana Labs allowed him to execute on.
And you know what I just realized? Taro's Navi is not running Copland OS. It's running kids technology. That doesn't really look like Copland OS on there. It might be. But
hard to tell.
Yeah, hard to tell. Yeah, it's possible that Tachibana Labs does not exist in this reality.
And that's what I thought. I'm like, why would even though you could go and scrub some of the stuff out of Eri, presumably if he's in the right environment,
it's true. Yeah.
It will allow him to do the thing that he does for the seventh protocol. So if you just yank the plug on Tachibana Labs entirely, Eri he's going to struggle to find that place to like exercise his talent.
Right.
And the hell for him is obviously the fact that nobody appreciates it. It's just like, dude, sucks to be you.
I love that. That totally makes sense.
No life-ending thing that you're going to like unleash on humankind? Oh, boo-hoo. Go back to your salaryman job. Jerk.
Well, and the other thing, we don't know how long it takes Laine to do this.
Right.
It could have taken her months to rewrite all of these things to make this happen.
Well, as you point out, how she shows up briefly on Taro's Navi. Who knows the degree that she literally has to do this to each person over time?
Yeah, because it's memory.
So
it's within rare.
So she might literally have shown up to Taro's Navi, gun Navi, and that's the point where she then rewrites.
Yeah.
So she has to go to each node and rewrite it individually.
Which, as we know from the series, basically means every human being on Earth.
Yeah.
Because we're all connected, and that's going to lead to someone, going to lead to someone, and lead to someone.
Yeah. Which could explain somewhat of why Alice still retains a familiarity.
Right.
It's because even when you're doing all this, complete re-architecture and complete reset, there are bits of data that you just cannot get your hands on.
Yeah.
There's going to be a mention, there's going to be a name somewhere you just cannot get your fingers on. So that could account for a little bit of that leakage in that respect.
It's why, by the way, in science fiction, well, not in science fiction, but you can't actually brainwipe people. Like, you can't actually remove all their memories because then, like, they don't know how to talk. They don't know how to, do basic functions because that's all part of memory too. Like, everything's interrelated because you noticed that thing when you were 2.
And it's not so easy to target the actual neuron cluster to do that because it's interlinked with other crap. It's like, we can get rid of this memory of something secret. Oh, now they don't know how to use the toilet. Good job.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, sweet.
Which reminded me now of the day I became a god. But anyway, triggered.
Which I've still got to get there.
Oh.
Don't. Well, it's
I can't.
And thinking about Laine, it's like, one of the investigative techniques they talk about, like going onto computers where people have like wiped their data files. One of the ways they reconstruct is to look at the remaining data.
Right.
So you pull out like certain elements of the tree that you're trying to hide, and it leaves parts of the roots.
Yep.
And that they can construct things from that. So it's like, it felt very much like that's where Laine's kind of going.
Damn it!
What?
I never went live.
You
I
were
never went
no.
live. I never went live. I didn't.
You
I wasn't
were
live
live.
for the last. No, I don't think so. The stream was coming in, but I didn't actually connect this up to YouTube until 30 seconds ago. I apologize. That sucks. I just noticed chat. Hey Morph.
Oh.
Hi everyone. So I screwed up because there's a little blue go live button on YouTube which I forgot to click. Everything else was connected. I was sending out data. And yeah, so we're going to have to do this. We're going to have to rewind all the way back to the beginning of the episode. Because everyone, we're going to give it to you. We need to talk about... God.
Oh.
Sorry, everyone. That's my mistake. I screwed up.
No. This is Saturday night.
Saturday night.
This is our technical Saturday night.
Yep.
So it's not
this
a screw up.
True.
This is entirely within the planning.
That was called rehearsal.
Exactly.
Please. We have to go through this again.
Now that we've gotten it down pat, we
Right.
just have to remember the points that we brought up.
Yes.
Damn.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Apologies. Like I said, we had some... no, we didn't have some technical difficulties. I didn't click a button. But we're here now.
Issue.
Yes. We're here to talk about episode 13 of Serial Experiments Laine. Again. Because, my gosh, this episode, this show.
So amazing, so incredible. We have to do this twice.
Exactly.
To get it in.
So anyway, so let's get into it. So,
Oh my god.
we have to cut at some point. Are we going to do the intro now, or are we going to do what? I need to know, like...
Well, let's just
You
start
ready?
from the salient points. Let's go.
Okay, all right.
Let's just do it again.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome, everyone. We're going to watch... we're going to talk about episode 13 of Serial Experiments Laine, because, my gosh, this show. We're going to dig in, because there's a lot to talk about. Yeah. Wait. What was that, Captain Laser Eyes? Are you saying we were live? Because everyone was saying the stream was canceled and we're having no stream, or what's going on? And there was no go live button. Like, the go live button was not on my side. So hold on. And we'll see what's going out here. Going on
You guys actually went for 20 minutes, and I didn't know you were live? Question mark. Not
Okay, we
live.
weren't live. Okay, gotcha. Okay,
Okay.
fair enough. All right, cool.
Okay.
We'll get there if it takes us all damn night. Welcome, everyone, to episode 13 of Serial Experiments Laine that we're going to dig into right here and now. It's been a wild night.
Oh my
and,
god, we had our own reset.
We did! Yes!
We just did.
We just had our own reset.
Oh my god.
And wait a minute.
So we're
what
gonna-
day is this, and what time is it?
Present day.
Hey.
Present
Present
time.
Oh god.
All right. So this episode does not start the way this show has been starting. We start just with Laine staring directly at us, asking us who she is and whether she is real, because, you know, what is me? Who am I? What is this me that is talking to you right now? Which is definitely a memorable thing to see on the screen.
Well, I mean, also for episode 13, this is the last time you're going to get to see Laine kind of sort of like this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like this is the finale is finally coming here. So it's like, thank you.
Yep.
And for added creep factor for you guys, if you haven't seen the last episode yet, watch it on a big screen TV
Okay.
in the dark. In the dark, total darkness, and just this, and then when her face appears, you're just gonna go, no, please, yeah,
Yeah.
please let me keep my soul.
Exactly. And you're right,
So
Morphin.
you won't remember
That
anything
goes.
about it. So
Exactly.
Scrubbed.
reset.
And then we get our opening credit sequence all the way through. And we get to think about that a little bit. And we were talking about, we have this interesting thing where it's in a lot of anime, like the beginning of the episode will have kind of the first few minutes of the previous episode is kind of a reminder. And we get that, I think, for the first time in the show. We had kind of that, like you said, that kind of music video a couple episodes ago. But this is literally, cutting back to what we saw before. And
Which I think the AMV was like a recap
Yeah, yeah.
This is
Right.
just that snippet to be like, let's dial back into like the horror that we had
Last week.
right before the end of last week. And now here's the fresh horror.
And remember the nightmare fuel we gave you last week? Well, here's the continuation.
And
Just for
here's
tonight.
how's it goes.
Exactly. Yes. Because we were talking before about how Alice is screaming the entire time. That's basically all we see. We just kind of fade away from Aerie getting all smashed. But now we get a whole sequence with Alice, and Alice is freaking the F out.
Yeah.
Yeah, really bad, and to the point where like she kind of lashes out when Laine tries to reach for her, and even just gets her across
Right.
the cheek. Now, what do we think that means? That sort of mark.
Well, I had thought when we discussed this without broadcasting, shh, don't say that. That it's the cliche is you hurt the one you love, and that Laine feels that she's hurt Alice so much. So in like rumors, we've seen like the kind of damage that can happen when things get out on the wired about people's lives, and that Laine feels this guilt about having hurt Alice, and in Alice, she's freaking out.
Yeah.
But that she doesn't mean to strike out at Laine, but she ends up hurting Laine
Right.
accidentally.
Yeah.
So now it's kind of an eye for an eye that Laine's hurt Alice. Alice is inadvertently but still hurt Laine. So now it's like trying to readjust how they're interacting in this world. So.
Yeah. I like that.
Also, I feel that it's a way for Laine to snap back to what's going on around her. So Laine is really focused on just obliterating Aerie at this point.
Yep.
And so then it's done. The deed is done. She's like, "Hey, look, we got it." And Alice is just like, totally losing it and flailing basically, and just hits Laine.
Yeah.
Scared of Laine, actually. She's terrified of Laine at this point. And then Laine is just kind of slapped. It's just like, just like, oh, yeah, crap.
Yeah.
Everything's really bad right
Yeah.
now.
Exactly. And as Morph is putting out in the chat room, body contact. Right.
Right.
It's that whole thing again. Body contact is good. So sometimes it's not.
Yeah.
You could also, relate this back to Rurouni Kenshin and the cross-shaped scar on the cheek. I don't know if we'd had all the backstory to that, because this does very much tie into Kenshin and kind of the themes of that. And the anime came out in '95, I think. So I'm not sure if like the manga had gotten to that point yet. It's I think volume 20 of the manga before we get to the backstory. I don't know.
Yikes! Wow.
Yeah, it's a long manga. But getting back to the joy that is Laine. Laine then embraces Alice, and Alice just is gone. She just goes limp, and
She's had a day.
she's had all the days.
Yeah.
And that's where we get.
Because ultimately, and in that shot, Ares' manifested corpse is lying entombed in that pile of machinery. Like, oh yeah, that's a lot to handle right there.
Yep, very much so. Yeah, Alice at EXE is not working.
And Alice is wearing red.
Yeah. Yep.
I want to so know whether that red shift, blue shift is real. Like whether
Makes
it's
sense
just
to me.
something strange, or were they like, yes, we put that in there for you, the audience.
They will never tell you.
I know. That's the sucky part about it.
And here's where we get the all reset. And we already got the reset once. We know what this means, but now we get an all reset, a complete reset. Because as you guys are saying, now Laine realizes, oh, I can't do this in half measures. We have to go back and completely change everything. And so we get episode 1 again. Shot for shot, scene for scene.
Which it does make me wonder, where is Aerie?
But we see him later on.
Aerie the god. When Laine resets everything and leaves Alice kind of alone, and so that Alice has these memories, but everybody else is kind of like sort of slightly reset.
Okay.
Aerie still is in there You know what I mean? It's like Laine's reset at the time doesn't pull him out of there.
Okay, can we wait until we get to that and we can see what's actually going on? Because the audience doesn't know that yet.
Well, I know I was talking about the other episodes, so like further back.
Okay.
Like why when she did the reset and didn't reset Alice, why didn't she like grab Eri, grab Yasuo, grab everybody else, and then fiddle with things?
How do you know she?
You know what I mean? It's and that's what I would think, that if she had done the first reset and picked like specific actors, that she might have been able to stop Eri from popping up there and freaking Alice the hell out.
I don't think she would have known at that point.
Yeah, that's hard. That's hard to know.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think she would have known at that point to do that, because I don't think she was.
Why would, in erasing people's memories of Alice's teacher, would Laine decide to change?
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah.
She was looking for a very specific thing,
right?
Versus like a global like, let's just remove 2 or 3 people from this and then this should solve things. I gotcha. But does that kind of like kicked in the back of my mind? Be like,
no, I hear you.
Reset the first time. It's just a point of this crap.
Yeah. And I think
again, we wouldn't have this.
Right. And I think that is kind of the point, is she realizes, oh, everything's connected. Like, there are follow-on things.
Right.
But yeah, we get episode 1 again. And
do you think she learned? Like this episode is Laine's learning, having made the mistake with Alice the first time, and that she now has like sat down and comprehensively planned out what she's going to do for the all reset. You know what I mean? Like,
so are you saying that when she does the all reset, she already has a plan?
I'm sort of, because it didn't work when she did the reset to try and stop the teacher's memory with Alice. Like, Alice was still in the loops. Alice still was confused about what's going on. So now that Laine is doing the all reset, is this the Laine that has learned, I now understand more of the parameters of what's going on in the Wired and what the specific thing I'm trying to do, I have to do it more globally?
Yes.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's why she's doing all reset.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I think it's
I think it's yes and no, because it's yes, she understands that she has to do everything differently,
right?
And that when she does the reset, she understands that she has to do it all, but she does it in the moment. Like we were before we realized that we were not live. We were talking about, going from node to node, to use what we were talking about earlier, from node to node to node. I didn't get that. This is kind of where I was telling you guys before we went on.
Before reset,
yeah. I'm going to pull a little bit of an Oshi here. I think it was all instantaneously. I don't think there was this progress. I don't think it took time. I think it was instantaneous. I think it's instantaneously. And as we, go to the end, and I'll give my theory that will be told that I am wrong.
Okay.
I'll wrap it up there, but I think it's more along that Laine is more omnipotent than I think people realize. I think she is a goddess at this point.
Yeah.
And so she's got basically her processing power by this point in time means that she's not mapping out necessarily in advance by like a long period of time. It's like, nope, I'm omnipotent. I know all this stuff, so I can do this like that.
Well,
kind of a snap moment.
Omnipotent versus omniscient. Like, right? Those are 2 different things. So,
omnipotent, because she goes through that we haven't talked about yet.
Yeah, but
we'll lead to that.
And I hear what you're saying. I think she's omnipotent, but not necessarily omniscient.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so, but yeah, we'll see. So we get episode 1 again. And what's interesting here is that they are replaying shots from episode 1 without Laine in them. And here's the thing from an animation perspective. That's not trivial to do. You can't just go back, because these are like panning shots. They're moving around. You can't just, slurp something out of that. You have to literally refilm it with those backgrounds, redo the same camera takes, just without the foreground cells of the character. So this is not cheap. This is not like, it's easy to redo this. They had to like literally reshoot the scenes. And and we get the famous shot of the front door with no Laine there.
Which again, this is what I said. The audio is so like not there at that moment where I thought there was no audio.
Okay.
I'm just like it's very quiet except for the hum.
Yeah.
I'm like, what's going on?
Yeah. The omnipresence of the Wired.
Or could the hum be Laine?
Well, I think we've heard the hum all the way through.
Yeah, if
Right?
the hum is the Wired,
Yeah.
really by this point in time,
Yeah.
13th episode, the Wired is Laine.
Yeah, and we certainly hear the tonality of the hum change. So it's possible that now this is the Wired with Laine, added on to it, so to speak. And so
Laine at the reins,
Yep.
if you will, controlling
Right.
some of the Nato above it.
And so here we see the family, sitting around the dinner table, or the breakfast table rather, with one empty seat, just sitting there, and it's just a normal family sitting around the table.
I wondered why wouldn't you show Mika?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the mother is
That is
Miho.
odd.
Is that the mother's
I
name?
think so.
Yasuo and Miho. We hear Mika, as Steve had pointed out in the pre-show, and we see her hands, and but we don't see her. She is noticeably like, "Yep, I'm out here," and we don't see her. So we just see Yasuo and Miho sitting there, having their breakfast, with obviously no fourth child, but a spot there. It's like I wonder why Mika doesn't show up in this then.
Yeah, it's very strange. And that could just be they didn't want to focus on Mika, and just kind of distract from the moment.
Just establish that she seems like normal and then move on with the story.
Yeah, it could be.
It's
I don't
possible.
know.
Easily.
Yeah. We do see Yasuo look over for a moment, as though he's remembering something, but it's just not quite there. Huh.
Yeah.
Moves on. But yeah, and even the door opens, and so I think Laine is actually going back through her day. She's going through a normal day the way she would, and she's checking everything all the way down. Because we even get the, here we go. Here's the train, the whole sequence. Again, they had to reshoot the entire thing. And then we even get the intro to school with the same beginning of it. And even the shadow coming in, which before was all the weird splotchy redness. Then it pans up to Laine, but this time it is Alice with a totally normal shadow. Because everything's apparently normal again. And even Alice talks to her friends, and she remembers something, but she can't quite get it.
Which they do mention Siberia.
They do.
So
Yep,
Siberia is
still there.
still extant, but it's like at that moment, it's like, okay, is this the weird Siberia intersection between the Wired and reality, or is this what is this? And then I'll tell her about it. Who's her? Like, oh, okay.
And I think she
Gotcha.
means, if we can that Chisa. And we get to see Chisa walking to school.
Still
Still
plummeting down 10 stories onto a
Yeah.
Which
I mean,
and it's sign.
And it's interesting, the reset that Laine's doing, it didn't make Chisa happy.
No.
No.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's like we've seen Chisa in the series regrets that, she gave
Right.
her physicality, but it didn't mean in the reset time and it's like, oh, I'm so giddy and happy to be alive. It's like, no, she's obviously still not that happy.
Well, the way I read into that particular little scene was that Laine created this situation for Alice to notice Chisa so that Alice would go to Chisa as Alice went to Laine.
Gotcha. Right. I like that a lot.
She substituted herself for Chisa.
Yeah. Or Chisa for herself. Yeah.
No, Chisa for herself.
Yeah. I like that a lot. Makes total sense. There is a moment. And actually, that answers the thing. Because the moment where Alice says, "Oh, that makes sense." I just realized that your explanation makes that fit much better. Because I originally thought that makes sense, meant, oh, Laine must have reset everything and fixed everything. I'm good to go. But if she's basically responding to her friend saying, oh, yeah, I was thinking of Chisa.
Right.
That totally fits.
Who her? Chisa.
Right.
Oh, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, cool. That it all comes together. Everything makes sense now.
But it still does. I mean, to your initial comment, it still does show that little sort of wrinkle.
Yeah, totally.
Because she doesn't say, "Oh, we should invite Chisa." She says we should invite her.
Her,
And then it's like
yeah.
there's that moment of like her who her Chisa. Oh yeah, that makes sense. It's like but there's that wrinkle. There's like a little bit of something going on in Alice's
Absolutely.
mind. So.
And it's, we talk about distortion in The Wire throughout the series, of this idea that information doesn't flow perfectly. One of my favorite sort of programming things is the fact that if something goes wrong with your data and you're trying to figure out what's going on with your data, all data on a computer is stored as bits, literally on and off, magnetically or electronically, whatever. But the way you store that isn't exactly, it's basically like an electrical charge or a magnetic charge. If you go from, full on and you switch that off, it doesn't actually go all the way off. It'll go to like 20%, and then up to like 80%, and then down to like 25%. And if you have the right tools, you can actually tell what the value used to be.
Oh.
Because of how it's moved around, this was 1, it stayed at 1, and it's pushed up, or it's recently been gone down to 0, so forth and so on. And it's a great example of how, we think of digital technology as being kind of, here's the file, and here's the data in the file. Well, there's actually some noise in there as well,
Right.
But yeah, totally.
There's a lot of digital fingerprints that lie around that nobody really particularly is aware of. They're not really immersed into the environment.
They say that there are 1 or 2 blue screens of death a month from Windows are caused by ray muon particles from the sun.
Wow.
Yep. They just hit memory in exactly the wrong spot and cause a bit to flip and corrupt something and causes one of the bazillion Windows computers on the planet to freak out.
That's why I've been arguing for making lead shielded computers.
Exactly.
And nobody
Yes,
believes
I
it.
agree. And I know. Crazy. Anyway, moving on. We then get to see Taro, Mew Mew, and the other kid.
Friend number 3.
Third wheel, I think is.
Third wheel. Yep.
put it correctly. And they're outside, not in Siberia, playing on the street, and quite happy, like skipping and playing. It's another thing I kind of noticed is that when they're in Siberia, they're all kind of bored. And they're always just kind of hanging out, but just kind of, whatever. And they seem very cheerful in this scene.
Yeah. They seem like kids.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, actually, they play rock, paper, scissors.
They do. Yep. Rochambeau. Definitely.
John, Ken, Mom.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
There you
go. I agree with you, Morph. Chisa is probably happier now that she's not dead.
So many more opportunities when you're alive.
Exactly.
Yes.
But Taro gets, and he actually does a little skip there, which I think is kind of cool. But he gets a call on his. Now this Navi is a pistol grip, which is very interesting. John, you were saying there's something about this.
That it looks like a C-96 Mauser, which would have been a contract piece from Mauser to the Chinese nationalists prior to World War II.
Interesting.
So it would be a somewhat semi-familiar look. I don't know the significance of that, though.
Yeah.
Unless you're saying like, oh, well, Siemens Technology, which was a German company that had extensive contracts with the Japanese during World War II. Yes,
wait,
that's
Siemens?
entirely possible. Siemens.
SIEMENS?
Yeah.
Yep, Siemens.
They're a major manufacturer of network technology.
Yes, they are.
Things.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's what I.
So that could be.
Know.
It's possible that when they got into computers too, and so
But I mean, the grip, it looks like a Mauser. Now Mauser had licenses
Okay.
for the bolt action technology. It included in the Springfield 1903 was basically a stolen technology that the U.S. government was paying Germany for quite a number of years because of that. But I don't know that the Arasaka was based on the Mauser. You know what I mean? It's like, so it's like,
Right,
I don't know the connection. Maybe the point is, like I said, Siemens had major contracts with Japan during World War II. Maybe this is supposed to remind you, oh yes, this kid's looking at a piece of technology, and the Germans and the Japanese had technology exchange to the degree possible.
Right.
It's like, I don't know. I have no idea what the significance of his gun Navi being that design.
Or
but it is curious.
Yeah. Or it could be just that it's older technology because we reset to an older version of reality.
Right.
Who knows?
Right. Unlike Laine's crazy pop out ribbon cable monstrosity.
So doesn't the reconstituted delivery guy say something to the effect of, "Oh yeah, I do a mod on my Navi. Did a mod on my Navi as well."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was supposed to be the big tech geek during the show.
Yeah.
So does this mean that Taro's abilities are dampened? Because Taro was person that was considered for the Knights, and he helped them out with stuff, and he was the go-to guy for Laine. And so maybe now that this guy who has the kid, and it's just like, oh, I used to have one of those. Maybe Taro's not as savvy as he used to be. Maybe Laine.
Well,
when Laine appeared, and she was going, I don't want you being
without
that curious.
Without Siberia, without the Psuge processor, those opportunities aren't available to him to dig into those things. Yeah.
Well, also if you pull Tachibana Labs out by the root,
wow.
you may ripple down effect to all these people who had these nodes of connection with the Knights and helping the Knights and delivering the technology here and there. It's like you rip that out by the roots, and it's like all of a sudden your delivery guy is not this Lothario for Housewives. He's just a older brother dragging his kid sister. Oh, kid sister or kid brother?
No,
we'll see here in a
her
second.
daughter.
We'll see here in a second. I think sister. I think sister.
I thought it was
I
kid
thought
sister.
she called him daddy.
Maybe she did.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But definitely not the housewife wooer that he was in the original.
Not the suave and debonair of, hey,
exactly.
Would you like me to help you with your hard drive?
It's interesting. I had not thought about the idea of Tachibana Labs being erased.
Well, we don't ever see the head of Tachibana Labs. We've seen other characters in and around.
You're right.
But we don't see that dude again.
Wow.
So it's like,
okay.
So what happens if Laine dialed it down? So she goes and she specifically affects the people that she knows, and then just rips the tree that is Tachibana Labs out.
Yeah, and that does not look like Copland OS. Now that you mention it,
No.
that looks kids technology. Now we haven't really seen his Navi in much detail, but it could be that just doesn't exist. Wow.
Yeah. Which think about it logically. It's like
totally.
If she just said, okay, Tachibana Labs, delete, that really does solve a lot of things.
It does. It totally makes sense. And if we have the idea of that ripple effect, if Tachibana Labs exists, there is a chance that they will create Laine at some point.
Right.
And so you need to kind of, like you say, to pull out from the roots. That's brilliant. But then, to your point, we then see both the little girl from Phantoma and the guy from the club alive and well and kicking.
Yep.
And walking
And you
around.
get a brief second of possibly Mika in the mask.
Huh? Where?
There was in the club scene. There is a brief, very, very nanosecond of of the waitress.
Yeah.
And we had thought, because one of the things when I went down that deep rabbit hole in that website, and someone posited the idea that the person in the the waitress in the gas mask was actually Mika.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Well, shows up for a nanosecond.
Yeah.
Is and we don't see her at the table.
Mm-hmm.
Could that be Mika? Could it really be Mika?
It could be.
And that's why we don't see her face.
Could be.
Could be.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that.
And again, to what end?
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like so much of this stuff is like some kind of meaning to it. It's like, to what end do we? Can we ascribe to that? Like,
Right. And the DJ, talking about the wrinkle, the DJ kind of has a quizzical look on his face as he looks up. When we see him, he's just kind of looking around, and that's when you get the little shot of the waitress, and then you get the the other shots inside the area.
Yeah. And in this, I find it interesting that they're showing you these characters are still alive. Like, you could infer that obviously we've reset that they're still alive, but like, no, all of these characters. And I also find it interesting, if these two are related, then it's possible that if Gun Guy was badly corrupted by Siberia, when he then came home and then was around the little girl, that's how she was able to get around Phantoma and, have influence she did on the Wired, because that kind of bled over into her. Who knows? But yes.
Well, also, if you show all these people alive, that is one of those things like where you can get the conspiracy theorists to set to the side, be like, no, there's not any sort of unanswered questions. These people are alive and they're doing this thing,
right?
So we're good. Yeah. We're all good. It's good, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's possible. There's something else I wanted to mention.
Lenny and Squiggy.
It's gone now.
Well,
no, in this scene. In this sequence. Anyway. And then it should be noted that Laine does show up briefly on Taro's Navi, and he does not remember her at all. Yep. So we had some hints that some people remember her, but Taro, no, it's not there at all.
Yeah.
And then to your point, we get to see Dr. Airy, and I almost pumped my fist in the air when I saw this scene, because whatever power Laine has, this could just be, Airy's kind of default. But I love the fact that, if Laine is taking a more active part in the reset, she just kind of put Airy in his own personal hell. Of just this miserable salaryman going along, just hating life. I'm going to quit today. I'm going to quit today.
No lab coat, no Fabio hair.
Right, exactly, yes.
Right.
No, he's not this whiz kid guru stuff. No, he's just an average schmo like the rest of us. I'm like, hey, cool.
Yeah. But he takes a weird interest in the guys.
Yeah.
In Lenny and Squiggy, the Men in Black.
Yep.
Former Men in Black. Working on the power lines. And he is kind of captivated by that.
It's interesting.
As if there's a germ of an idea, but then it just quickly goes away because he drank malt liquor that morning and he's very angry.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, and again, like we've talked about, there are little kernels that are here and there that Laine cannot absolutely get rid of.
Right.
But by taking care of some of the root issues, that it just managed to cut off that route. So he might be looking at them thinking, oh, connectivity. Oh,
right.
That's that's amazing. Look what they're doing. They're getting everything wired up, getting everything going. Well, damn, my job sucks. Removed. He's got the kernel of there's things that could be greater, but you've removed from him that avenue to that future that was Laine.
But to your point, if Tachibana Labs has been erased, Airy isn't working at Tachibana Labs anymore.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's no lab coat and stuff. He is literally probably a dude sitting in a cubicle. It's delicious. It's a delicious ending for him. You're like,
he is working some sucky job somewhere. Oh, what goes around comes around. But it is interesting. And again, in a show like Laine, that we have this that has been so weird and that has been so vague with us, that they're like, no, everyone's fine, everyone's back alive, everything's good.
Laine did the thing, and she did all of it. She didn't do part of it. She did the whole thing.
Yep.
I'm like, gotcha.
Yeah. And here's where we get present day, present time. And the laugh. And I finally figured out, literally 2 hours ago, why the laugh is in here. Because every time up until now, this has been a joke because we have not been watching reality. We've been watching the original version that Laine erased. It has never been present day, present time. we are now actually looking at present time.
At present time.
Oh wow.
Exactly.
Oh damn! I never thought of that.
Yeah. Yeah, everything up to this point is now just me.
Mm-hmm.
It's the past that isn't.
Yeah.
Right.
Doesn't exist anymore.
Oh. Damn.
Yeah.
I never thought of
Exactly.
that. Okay. Cool.
And then we get what we normally get at the beginning of the episode of the cars and all that kind of stuff. No distortion visually, no distortion auditorially. Everything's back to normal. We do get a stop instead of a go.
Yep.
And thank you, Steve, for pointing this out, because that is definitely a symbol. Because Laine is stopped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we get Laine. And I love this shot. Because, boy, if this isn't symbolic of the entire show, this, and we've said before, this sort of odd, monochromatic city is very emblematic of The Wired. And Laine is this tiny little thing. Just a little dot in this vast universe. All alone.
Kind of like a nullscape,
Yeah.
Right.
but.
And she is miserable. Which is kind of weird. Because she won. She defeated Aerie. She did exactly what she needed to do. Everybody's alive. Everybody's, going on about their lives. Why is she so miserable?
Because they're going on with their lives without Laine.
Yeah, exactly. She's replaced Aerie as God, basically, of The Wired. Though I'd argue that none of them are actually God. They're just kind of omnipresent.
Right.
And so she has the power, but the only way to fix it is to remove herself from reality. And now that she's done that, she kind of doesn't exist.
It's very lonely to be not anything,
Yeah.
I guess.
And then she is met by Blue Dress Laine.
Yeah.
And remember, Crazy Laine of The Wired is White Dress Laine.
Right.
So I think this is, in a sense, one of two things. It could either be kind of that software version of Laine that now was not corrupted by the experiences she had, or it's just Laine talking to herself, as she often does. It's just kind of that other side of yourself. Actually, I'm just reading a book where the guy talks about emotions as being the hot part of yourself, and your rationality being kind of the cold part of yourself, the cool part of yourself. And that your rationality is sort of like a cooling system for the hot part of your emotions. That your emotions kind of ramp up and ramp up and ramp up on their own, and that your rationality can serve as a cooling system for that, if you will. Imperfect analogy, but kind of helpful.
So the Laine in the white dress is the white hotness of
Yes, and
of emotion,
yeah,
and the cool rational is blue that's coming in.
Yeah. Those are the kind of two aspects of her personality that are kind of working through these issues. Again, I don't know if that's intentional here, but I think certainly this is, suffering Laine and logical kind of, thoughtful Laine talking to each other here. Because she's working through this thing. And then we get this pullout of this city in a bubble.
Yeah. In nothing.
In nothing. Absolutely.
There's nothing around it.
And there have been quite a few, thoughts about this. Images of this. One is that this could literally all be happening in this little bubble of reality. That, the entire series is here. It's Angel's Egg, basically.
Right.
This is just this little cosmos that we're living in. Or there's a representation of The Wired. That Laine has basically sliced off this little bit of reality for herself within The Wired that she's allowing herself to kind of exist in. But it is in nothingness.
Her own chat room.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is where they had the argument where she decides she's miserable and she's trying to figure out who she is, and the rational Laine is going, but this is what she wanted.
Yes.
This is what this is where we're at now. This isn't this what? And she seems happy with that. That part of Laine is just like, well, this is the goal, right? This is what we want to do. And so it's like this final conversation with herself of just like, is this really what I want to be? Is this what I really want to do? And the loneliness of her closing herself totally off from everything, the city and the bubble, the alienation, whatever it is, whatever you want to call it, she doesn't like it. She doesn't want it. But she knows she can't go. She can't be part of everything. But then, as a rationale and her ego, whatever,
Yeah.
are talking, she comes to the realization that I don't have to be part of things, but I can watch things.
Yep.
And I can go down and they're not going to know who I am. And so I can perfectly come in and check in from time to time. And who does she check in on?
Yeah.
And in the future,
Yep.
she
And
checks in on Alice.
exactly. By the way,
Which-
I love your use of the word ego, because what is the title of this episode? Ego.
Ego.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, it's discussed, earlier on, talking about. I had the thought. Damn it, the thought's gone. Crap. Oh, what was it? Oh, it's gone. All right. If it comes back again, I'll let you know.
Sure.
She erased it.
Sure.
Yeah,
exactly.
it's all
I
gone.
won't allow it. We're actually at Siberia here. Okay, I don't think we're gonna be able to see. Okay, whatever. It's not gonna. Oh, there he is. So there's JJ. Oh, and there she is. Yeah, there's Mika. Taking the 1,000 yen bill, maybe. Yeah, unknown. Who that is?
Yeah, I was to say it's hard to tell.
Yeah, and the lighting's all
Yeah.
weird, so it's kind of light brown, but who knows? And yeah, and then there's also, I mean, I think Jay's also got it in the chat that there's an enlightenment aspect of this, where you act, and there's the acting part of you, and then there's also the spiritual side of you, the enlightened side of you, and what you are, what you work through, and how you react to what you do. That's a terrible way of saying it. Yeah, everyone should find their own answers. Thank you. That's what we're doing right here, Kanaka. And yeah, so Laine's working it all out, and then she finally has that moment where she goes, "Oh, wait." To your point, Steve, there is an out. But before that, she is miserable, and
Yes.
she just doesn't know what to do, and so she's.
I thought of the thing I forgot.
Okay, go for it.
Before, when she was talking with Ari about looking in on things, I have very little influence that I can just kind of make things go, but I don't have real control over what's going on in the Wired. It's like, that's this kind of moment where it's like Laine's kind of understanding. It's like she shouldn't have that much influence. That she should have that looking in on, that watching in on Alice, that looking in on stuff, and that it shouldn't be an active influence in the real world. It should be more of an observational position.
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Sorry. Go ahead.
I'm glad you
And
did that. Yeah.
and I think that comes from her conversation in the floating table with Yasso.
Yes.
Right.
And where she's in the Kuma Bear outfit.
Yep.
And he says to her, "You don't need to wear that next time you see me."
Yeah.
And he says, "Next time you see me." And and actually, John, I was thinking about you a little bit when I saw this because you talk about in the past and other things talking about casting away of childish things.
Yes.
So Yasuo is saying to her,
Yep.
look, you're not a child anymore. You are what you are, and this is you don't have to look like that for me anymore.
Right.
And she's crying. She doesn't know what to do, and she's trying to figure it out. And he goes, "Well, you love everybody, don't you?" Well, yeah. Well, there you go. Okay. And next time I'll make us some tea next time.
Yeah.
So he alludes that there's going to be a next time, and then that's when she kind of figures out. She goes, "Oh, I can be the watcher. I can still be involved, just not like you were saying, John. I shouldn't be going. Oh yeah, I'm going to mess with your mind. What's going on in here or over here? Or,
And I'll give that in a second here. More. I actually want to go back to for a second to that moment where she's all alone, and she looks up and she sees the light. And I was wondering this, and thank you, more for saying it explicitly. It's Plato's cave. That Kanaka said this was an explicit reference to Plato's cave.
Okay.
That now she is seeing the actual the actual light of reality. And for many people, and this is, I believe, Freudian, your father is your first conception of God.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I think that tracks onto here, that Laine is looking for another, another voice, and she kind of
wait till I start getting emotional. Guys.
Oh boy.
Oh my.
Exactly. And then, to your point, he talked about having tea and having Madelines. He explicitly calls out having Madelines, and that is a reference to Proust. There's a moment in Proust where he talks about taking a bite of Madelines and having all these memories flooding back. And then the Madeline is sort of his connection to all these memories in his life. And so it's Madeline's memory, all those things going on. And as you say, and this is where we come back to reality and we see this young woman. And it took me a while the first time I saw this episode to go, who is that? Why are we seeing this young woman? Who is that? And especially in English, the voice actress, she definitely changes her voice. It's definitely an adult version of Alice, who is, out with her boyfriend.
Steve Bloom.
Steve Bloom. Yep.
It's an adult Taro.
Yeah. Well, she does mention the fact that you're my good student. So the whole teacher-student thing might still be a thing there. I don't know. And they both laugh it off, so it could just be a joke. And they're obviously both adults, but still just kind of Kanaka.
Yeah.
And then who does she see on the bridge, all dressed in red?
An unknown child.
But Alice is drawn to her for some strange reason.
Yep.
And what color is Alice also wearing? But red.
Mm-hmm. Boyfriend is in red and blue.
Yes, exactly.
Alice is in red.
Mm-hmm. And so Alice comes in, and I love Laine's expression here because it is very slightly creepy. I think this is actually calling back a little bit to the Alien shot. Because she has this very knowing expression on her face, just a little bit, as she's looking at Alice, because Laine knows what's going to happen here.
Yeah.
But it is ultimately a very positive moment as they introduce themselves. And they have this wonderful moment. And it should be pointed out, by the way, what is everything in this scene?
All red.
Red.
But also notice how there's not a lot of detail. And again, this sort of an animation trick. We're not paying attention to the background. We're being focused and pulled onto our main characters.
Yeah.
As they're having this moment where Laine actually introduces herself to Alice, and we get the Alice-Laine moment. And Laine finally gets, apologies if I get a little emotional here, Laine finally gets closure. Because now, there's a memory of her in the real world, and she now exists in a real way. And they walk off, and that's enough. That's all she needs at this moment is some connection in the real world. And Steve, to your point, far enough in the future that it's not going to cause some strange ripple effect, right? All that's been taken care of.
Which, is this 10 years, would you estimate, by Alice's age?
I would, roughly, that works for me, yeah.
So that's a decade's worth of time. That's a good chunk of passage.
Yeah.
To then insert herself in.
And even Alice's behavior, she feels like an adult. She has that kind of maturity and stuff. And then, yes, and so I mentioned in the past, there's some shot in this that Yoshishi Abe himself animated. This is the one. It's not the earlier ones, because this is totally Abe's style, looking at it again. And it's not very much like the other shots we saw, frankly. The art style is noticeably different. Her eyes, for one thing, are much smaller. Fun fact, Abe was not allowed to watch anime growing up.
What?
He was not. His parents thought it would be a bad influence on him.
Oops. Oops.
Yes and no.
Yeah, exactly. But he was able to animate this final sequence because the producer wanted his thumbprint on the show, if you will, his handprint on the show of Laine actually talking to you directly from the hand of the creator. Ha ha ha. And then we get our end credits.
Boy, what a ride it's been.
No kidding. There are so many pieces in this. One thing I haven't mentioned at all is there's just one of those little things you come across is Laine's last name, Iwakura, is a reference, I think, to the Iwakura mission, which was done by the Japanese government right after the Meiji Restoration. It was basically a tour of all of the world, and all of like the industrial nations of the world to look at their industrial processes and they brought I think 100 and some people on this mission.
It was large.
It was big.
Yeah.
And they went all over the place.
I didn't tie that together. That's good.
Yeah, and it was literally called the Iwakura mission, and it was to technologize Japan. It was like, I wonder why they chose that word. Yeah.
Damn. Yeah,
So
I hadn't thought of that connection.
Tons of things. So I'm going to ask a very big question. What are your thoughts at this point? Oh, what are your kind of... let me ask this question for both of you. When you got to the end of Laine the first time, Steve this time, or John before, what was your reaction at that point? Like getting to the very end of the show.
Oh, thank God. I don't mean that in a bad way, but I mean like it. I'm curious to know the after Laine. You know what I mean? It's like I hate to think of shows like oh, I want more Clannad. Here's the after story. Like God, that was a mistake. For this, it's like, I'm just so curious to know. It's like she brought things to a really, a good point where everybody is doing okay, except for Laine. She gets some closure to it, but Laine is fundamentally alone in this. She can check in and she's been acknowledged, but she's still alone. And it's like, does she now forward episode 14? It's like, would Laine then feel like, okay, everything's cool, nothing's screwed up. Now I can be a part of the real world and I can just sort of put the wire behind me and I can have a life. Or is Laine just, she understands the disaster that was her intersection with things, and that now 10 years hence she checks in on Alice again, and then 10 more, so it's like every decade she checks in, but she just lives hanging out in her null space for 10 years, and then when the clock goes off, she checks on Alice. And it's just like, I felt a deep sort of sadness to that, where it's like, I feel great that the people who are dead are alive, and that things are, going on and going well, presumably for them, and Aerie gets his just desserts. But it's just fundamentally sad for Laine, because it's like she stands in such a position where she can't, there's so much she cannot do, and yet there's so much she can do. It's like, oh, geez. So, first time watching is still the time watching is still the same result. More things pulled out of it, but it's still the same kind of thing. It's like, oh, Laine is just, she is eternally this young girl who can't grow up in the real world.
And
it's like,
Steve, I'll get to you in a second, but I want to respond to that real quick. You're wrong. I'm kidding. Actually, the producer said at Otakon actually that he expected American audiences to hate this ending because Laine makes a very Japanese choice. She sacrifices herself for society, right? And she is not as important as the group. And he was very gratified to see that everyone was that audiences got it, whether they agreed or not, whether they found it sad or not. They were like, I understand the logic of why she did that.
Right.
So I think I totally understand that reaction, because I think it is very valid that it is tragic. The Laine has done this thing and she's found some level of comfort, but it's definitely not a happy ending for Laine.
No.
Yeah. Steve, how about you?
So I did not have my visceral reaction as I did to the end of the original Evangelion anime. I did not.
Okay.
There was no cursing. There was no throwing of things. Nothing with no holes in walls or anything.
No slow clapping.
No, so no. Got it. No. It was everything that we talked about tonight is good and well and good, and it's it was, as I said, I expected an end, and it was an end.
Mm-hmm.
But as I think I was saying in Discord a couple days ago, it's not the what that bothered me, like how this ended with the resolution, as opposed to Evangelion, where that's really all you got. And how do you feel about it in chat land?
I mean, 6 movies later, but yeah.
Right. But this, there's resolutions of sorts. There is answers of sorts, not total answers. There's still questions out there, and still things to ponder and understand. What I found annoying was that we spent 12 episodes of going through this wonderful, thought-provoking thing, chock full of stuff in each episode that was just a lot of fun. And then it just 24 minutes, here you go, tied up, right, in a little bow for you, in a messy little bow, but it's tied up for you. So here you are. So to me, I think it was one of those things where it's just like, I almost felt like it was Mobile Suit Gundam, where it's just like, did they not have the budget to go? Because I felt this ending could have been done over, to your point, John, over a 14th episode. I think this ending could have been extrapolated a little bit longer. I think it could have been a little bit more, not detailed necessarily, but I think that they could have not just ended it right then and there. It just felt kind of that way to me.
Did you want like more ambiguity?
No.
Okay.
What I wanted, and it's not that I wanted more ambiguity. I just wanted the story to have its natural course. I didn't feel that it had a natural course.
Okay.
I felt like that this was cut short a little bit. Now, of course, I could be totally wrong because I'm not the guy who made it. So they could probably be like, they're just like, no, this is what we meant to do, and that's probably the answer. But it just felt like that we could have expanded on the story to get to that end a little bit longer and in a little bit more interesting fashion, as opposed to we're going to have to wrap this up in 24 minutes. Kind of a deal.
This is. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
No.
Okay.
Well, it's definitely not like it's. To its defense, it's not like a smash cut to an ending.
Right. Yeah.
Because, there have been series that go 10 episodes that are 23, 24 each. And it's like, you can tell that 10th episode is like, wow, this has not hit a market share. Smash end it. We're done.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So it's like, this has a distinctly functional ending. And it's a perfectly fine ending.
Yes.
But to absolutely agree, Steve, it just feels like you could flesh this out.
That's
in
it.
a way that it's like,
I
have a functional ending, but I would just like to see a more expansive ending where it's like, I guess it's that desperate need for a happy ending, maybe.
Yeah. Well, that's the best way to put it, is to have it fleshed out. There's nothing wrong with the what of it. It's just how they did it. Now, this is where, do you mind if I get Oshi here?
Go for it.
Okay. And of course, you'll tell me I'm wrong. But so for me, I there was a lot of biblical allegory going on to this whole thing, and but I didn't feel the Oshi moment until when Yaso is talking to Laine in the floating table, and then for me, that's when a lot of things started wrapping together in a biblical sense, where that Eri is Lucifer, the morning star, and that he's not just the tempter. The Wired is his heaven, his new heaven. That's why he calls himself God, and he's rebelling against who he calls himself God. He doesn't acknowledge that there's another God because this is the world that he's making, and he wants to tempt Laine into this world as he's tempted others. There's that scene where you have Jesus saying this isn't a good idea. The guy who shot himself in the head, those are the temptations. of Jesus, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's the final temptation of going, "Hey, I'm the guy who's always going to love you," kind of thing. When Yasuo is opens, the box, I didn't think of Plato's cave, but that actually really does work. But what I was thinking of Yasuo going, "Hey, I made you," because he did,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and I made you. So let's talk about this thing that you're going through, and let's kind of talk about this. And when he says, "Well, the reason why you're miserable is because you love everybody. So what's the solution here?" And by the way, we'll talk again in the future. So he's not expecting to be. This Yasuo is not expecting to be deleted or anything like that.
Right.
So when Laine does it, the Yasuo that's in the real world, yeah, sure, he doesn't really remember anything, but there's the Yasuo who created her, and that's actually God, and she's more of a Christ figure.
Sure, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And so because
The
what
son
she's
of
doing
the
is
child of Yasuo. Yeah.
yeah. So and because she's the child, she's the angel up in the sky, right? So you have that,
John the Baptist moment.
And Aerie is like, no, we can't have this. I'm the one who's supposed to be in control. So it's that fight, and which he eventually loses.
Yeah.
And he is cast out of his own heaven. So he is angry all the time, and that's his hell. He's cast out. And
When he becomes the salaryman, he's all bitter and angry about it.
Right, and angry and everything.
Okay.
And so when Laine makes her choice to be, I don't have to involve myself in every little thing that goes on. I can watch and I can appear from time to time if I want to.
Yeah.
Because I have the ability to do that. I will sacrifice myself
Yeah.
for you.
Because
And
I love the
so
world.
I will ascend.
Yeah.
I will ascend, but then I can come back down and touch you and talk to you. And you don't have to believe in me, but I can be there for you. Because that's what she's saying. I am there for you. I will always be here for you, whether you know it or not. So anyway, that's what I got out of it. That's my Oshi moment.
I think you're right.
Now I'm wrong.
That makes me wonder, like the times that we've seen Yasuo with Laine, have they ever been seated where she's sitting at his right-hand side? And I think she is.
You're right.
Yeah,
Because
I didn't think about that. Yeah.
Because that dinner table, Yasuo sits across from Miho. Mika is
Damn,
to
you're
the
right.
left,
You're right.
and she is to the right.
She lives to the right-hand side of Yasuo.
So she sits at the right hand of the
God.
father.
Yeah.
Holy crap, Steve!
Yeah.
You're welcome.
And
And I just thought of the fact that God, Yasuo, created her, and she is not born of a woman.
Yep.
Oh my goodness!
And who do we see working together in the past? Yasuo and Aerie, God and Lucifer, right?
Because Lucifer was one of God's. Yeah, holy. Before the Lucifer's fall.
Yeah.
Okay, John, ready?
Oh,
damn!
Slow clap.
And
Slow clap.
Lucifer's fall. What does Aerie do?
he becomes
He dies.
Right.
He gets on the Yamato line or whatever the hell that was.
But
So
anyway.
that's his fall. From
literal fall from grace.
holy.
Yeah.
Damn.
That's great.
Wow. So Laine's got this thing going on. Evangelian's got this thing.
Yeah.
It's a lot of people reading in.
I would argue
Christian and stuff.
I would argue that Laine's theology maps more cleanly than Evangelion's theology.
There's a lot
anyway.
going on in Eva.
That's true. Yes.
Yeah, that's true.
In many, many ways. I love that. This is one of the reasons why I love Laine, because everyone I talk to who's seen it has a very different reaction to it and a very different interpretation of things. I think the ending episode is perfect. I wouldn't change a thing about it. Because I like the ambiguity. Not the ambiguity, but I like the fact that we don't have the answer. I like the fact that we don't know what Laine does in the future, because that lets us imagine it. it gives us the opportunity to think those thoughts, and I love the what it gives us. But again, that's just me. Everyone has their own take on it, which I think is really, really cool.
Laine is like a Rorschach test. You make out of it what you see.
Yeah. Exactly. And exactly, Jay. It's like the creator wants the viewer to think about how it ended, and kind of and the entire rest of the show. Think about all those pieces. To your Christ figure, and I think that totally tracks. All of these things weave together. Laine keeps on giving.
Yeah.
And for me, when I finished Laine, my reaction was, I did not get it the first time I watched it. I was very impressed, but all of these various pieces just did not come together for me, and I had to go online and talk to friends and really analyze it to understand what I was seeing and put all the pieces together. Because to me, it was just there was too much. I was lost with that ending the first time I saw it.
Well, you remember when I first saw it, and I told you what my thoughts were on it.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, Laine is deeply disturbed. She has no parents. She has this dissociative disorder. She's like a troubled child. She doesn't have any idea what's going on. This is all a vivid fantasy. But watching it again, there's a whole lot more going on there.
Yeah. And again, I think that is a totally valid, I think that is supported by what we see in the anime, that she has all these weird things going on, and then it's all fine in the end. As we pointed out, one final little note. This outfit Laine has on the bridge, we only ever seen in the opening credit sequence. This is, we never see, I believe, this pink and red outfit. Maybe in Siberia, possibly. But I think we only see it on the bridge.
Yeah.
But anyway, really.
Yeah, I was going to say, because her little Peruvian cap that hangs in the midair in the entry sequence.
Actually,
I'm not sure
let
we
me
see her
check.
wearing that little cap.
I'm wrong. I am completely wrong. I was totally wrong. That is her Siberia outfit. It is not what she's wearing on the bridge. On the bridge, she is wearing this pink.
And red.
Yeah, it is pink and red, but it's definitely not what she's wearing on the bridge, because there's that gray shirt underneath.
Yeah.
So it's interesting.
I just want to know what happened to the hat.
It's still hanging there.
It's still had a GPF moment, just hanging in space. Like, oh.
Totally.
Does anybody else see the hat? Don't talk about the hat. Why? Because Laine will hear you. Who? Nobody. I said nobody.
No, wait.
There is no such thing as Laine. What?
Yep.
No, we all love Laine.
Exactly.
What?
And,
Oh,
and
God,
we cycle
no.
around, Bridge in the
Exactly.
opening.
Oh, yeah.
bridge in the end. It's awesome stuff. So yeah, that will do it for our analysis of Serial Experiments Laine.
13 episodes.
Just a brief, shallow run over of some of the things in this series, scratching the surface, doing what we can. We're going to take a quick break for just a few minutes, and then we're going to talk about more modern anime and the latest anime news. We will be right back.